What is the best exercise to get faster? Over the last couple of years, there's been one exercise that's been getting a lot of hype.
Being able to do this is the greatest common denominator between the world's greatest horizontal athletes.
But at a lot of football clubs I've been to, the Nordic is something that they use kind of during pre-season, and always the fastest, most athletic people there do the best on it.
Well, there we have it. The best exercise for getting faster is the Nordic Hamstring Curl. Or is it?
We tried Nordics more than once in my lifetime, and basically people got injured. Tried Nordics, basically people got injured more than once in my lifetime, and tried Nordics, basically people got injured.
So what's going on here? For those that are unfamiliar, the Nordic Hamstring Curl is a bodyweight exercise that is performed by securing your feet under a heavy object and then lowering your body into the ground via extension at the knee joint. And there are a lot of reasons why Nordics could potentially help you improve your speed as an athlete. For example,
Because this is the greatest point of force in horizontal speed and jumping.
it's true, during sprinting a lot of strain is placed on the hamstrings, especially when they're in a lengthened position. And so this is also supported by the fact that hamstring strains are one of the most common injuries for sprinters and also for other athletes that have to frequently sprint. Another point that supports the training of the hamstrings via Nordics is the fact that research has shown us that elite sprinters generally have greater hamstring muscle volume than that of their sub-elite and non-sprinter counterparts. Given that eccentric exercises like Nordics are known to be great for inducing hypertrophy, this evidence supports the use of Nordics in getting faster. Furthermore, there is a now famous study that purports to have shown that the Nordic Hamstring Curl can reduce hamstring injuries by up to 51% across multiple different sports. So it's no wonder why people get excited about Nordics for boosting speed. There are 4 key points. 1. They're sprint specific in the sense that you're training your hamstrings in a lengthened position, the same as you'll find in sprinting. 2. Fast athletes excel at Nordics, thereby hinting at this correlation. 3. They promote hamstring hypertrophy, which is something that the research shows is common in elite sprinters. Elite sprinters have higher hamstring muscle volume than sub-elite and non-sprinters. And 4, Nordics significantly cut down on hamstring injuries, which are the most frequent issue for sprinters and other speed-reliant athletes. But before we look at some counter-arguments, let me introduce myself. So hi, my name's Jack. I'm the creator of Azide Performance, which is basically a platform that helps athletes increase their athletic performance by offering a range of resources and tools. So for example, we offer a 4-week training program to help athletes improve their acceleration. We offer a sprint calculator that predicts an athlete's sprint performance based on a single variable. We have a plyometric library which allows you to sort through a range of plyometric exercises and sort by your sport to find which ones are most relevant for you. And lately I've released a new tool which is Azzy, which is Azide Performance's resident sprint coach, and you can ask Azzy anything you like about sprinting and strength and conditioning, and all of these tools are 100% free forever, and you can check the description if you're interested in checking out any of those. Now back to Nordics. The issue when we say that Nordics are specific to sprinting is that while the position of the hamstrings is similar, the velocity is completely different. Sprinting is extremely specific. It's always difficult to predict how a certain exercise will transfer over to sprinting simply because sprinting really is like nothing else. When you're sprinting, your whole body has to coordinate in a highly specific way, with your muscles shortening and lengthening at a rapid rate and your feet contacting the ground for around 1/10 of a second. In other words, because the time frame over which force is applied during a Nordic is a couple of seconds, whereas the force applied during sprinting occurs over fractions of a second, we cannot say that Nordics are specific to sprinting. For example, look at this guy, and now look at this guy. Who do you think is faster? Well, one of them is an Olympic gold medalist, and one of them is a random stock photo guy. The point that I'm trying to make here is that I wouldn't be surprised if the stock photo guy would be able to produce more force than DeGrasse, the Olympian, over a longer time frame. For example, the seconds that it takes to do a squat or a deadlift. And so being able to generate a lot of force in the context of a Nordic, which happens over a very long time frame, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to produce a lot of force over a shorter time frame that is necessary when sprinting. Well then, Jack, why is it that fast athletes always seem to be good at Nordics? Some people might ask. Well, I'm not too sure about that. Let's go back to our guy, DeGrasse, our Olympian, and we can see him here doing a type of exercise that's very, very similar to Nordics. They're called, I think, razor curls. And you can see DeGrasse is struggling a little bit, right? He can't really get that full range of motion and he's having to kind of hold himself. And here's me doing Nordics. I mean, I don't think, my form's not perfect, but I think I'm probably a bit better than average. And I'd probably say that I'm faster than your average amateur athlete, so to speak. And nonetheless, Andre DeGrasse is in a completely different galaxy to me when it comes to speed, despite the fact that I would argue that I'm probably a bit better at these type of Nordic-like exercises than he is, at least in this clip. And while I would probably expect that there would be some sort of correlation between ability to do Nordics and overall speed, I don't think it's this magical indicator for speed and that there's this kind of one-to-one relationship there as some people have made it out to be. Okay, but what about the fact that Nordics can increase the volume of our hamstring muscles, which, as we have seen, are bigger in elite sprinters? Well, I'm sure that if you did Nordics long term, your hamstrings would get bigger and stronger and that might help you get faster. But I suppose the argument here is that just because an exercise might be beneficial in some way long term, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should incorporate it into your training. The reason for this is that you cannot do every exercise that there is out there, and hence you have to be selective as to what exercises you choose to do. The way that you do this is you look at the exercises and you look at their return on investment. And so this comes down to the ratio of how much benefit the exercise provides compared to the amount of time and energy it takes. And if you've ever done Nordics before, then you know how taxing they can be. The other day, for the purposes of this video, I did literally less than 10 reps, and for days after, my hamstrings were still sore. And when your hamstrings are in this condition, you're not able to incorporate other high intensity exercises such as full intensity sprinting because you're going to risk injuring your hamstrings. And so I think Nordic hamstring curls just have a really low ROI when it comes to improving your sprinting ability. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's listen to a clip from the Just Flight Performance podcast of veteran sprint coach Randy Huntington, who has coached some of the best athletes in the world when it comes to these horizontal sports like sprinting, jumping, and so on.
Maybe if you could throw in your thoughts on Nordics there, that's like a hot button thing. So we'll take that one.
Yeah.
Hamstring injury training.
We tried Nordics more than once in my lifetime, and basically people got injured doing them. It's too much for a track athlete unless you're not doing hardly any running at all.
Randy's point here is, of course, not that Nordics cause injury themselves, but rather it's hard to balance doing Nordics with other high-intensity exercises such as sprinting for the reasons we just discussed. And while we're here, let's just go back to that second argument that fast athletes seem to be really good at Nordics. And I'm going to play this clip where Randy makes a comparison that's very similar to what I did previously, where I was comparing myself to Andre DeGrasse.
I mean, in the fall, we'll do, weighted glute ham eccentric drops. I mean, essentially a Nordic. But if that was the key for being fast and performance, Sue would have a hard time with 15 kilos. And I would put my female long jumper on there and she's knocking out 35 kilos, like nothing. And the guys are just staring at her like, what are you made of? Because we can't do that, and yet one could run 11.6 and the other can run, 10.0.
Okay, but even if Nordics aren't the most efficient way to get faster, they help indirectly because they prevent injuries, which of course can promote long-term progress. A lot of people love Nordics because of the injury prevention side of things, especially after that study came out showing a reduction of up to 51% in hamstring injuries. Randy himself says that he likes them for this reason.
I like it for injury prevention.
However, a study from late 2021 has argued that this previous study used inappropriate methodology to arrive at the conclusion of injury reduction by up to 50%. And furthermore, this more recent study argues that if more appropriate methodologies are used, then the evidence underpinning the protective effects of Nordics so far remain inconclusive. Okay, but leaving that aside for now, I think there's a more fundamental point to be made here. and that is that there is an exercise that has a much greater ROI than Nordics in terms of improving sprint performance, as well as having greater hamstring protective effects. And that exercise is sprinting itself. Sprinting has repeatedly been shown to not only, of course, improve sprinting performance, but to also prevent muscle, including hamstring injuries. In other words, sprinting can already do what Nordics purport to do, just plus more. As Randy puts it,
When that foot hits the ground, the forces on that hamstring are amazing. You're getting a Nordic with every footstep.
I don't want this video to come across as a Nordic hate video, because as I've mentioned, they of course have their benefits. But the biggest issue that I have with Nordics is that in some communities, they seem to have overshadowed the real magical speed exercise, if you want to call it that, which is sprinting itself. And so you get these athletes that start doing Nordics hoping to get faster, and they haven't even covered the basics. You shouldn't even be worrying about Nordics if you aren't already sprinting regularly. I would say that if you're already sprinting on a regular basis and you find that you recover from Nordics relatively quickly and you're looking for some additional exercises to incorporate in the gym, then Nordics might be appropriate for you. But they are certainly not some sort of magical speed exercise that is going to solve all of your problems and make you more athletic overnight. As we've seen today, research does not support that. Guys, thank you so much for watching my video. This video is actually based on an article that I wrote some time ago now, but there are some additional points that I didn't cover that are in the article, so if you're interested, I'll put the link in the description to this video where you can check it out on the AZ Performance website. I'll be posting more content like this, so please subscribe and I'll see you next time. Increase their athletic performance by offering